All right, and would like to now change gears and take a look at our dailies and see what's making headlines on the newspapers this morning. As usual, would like to start off with the Standard, where we have the headline as final countdown. And of course, I'm sure you know what that means. It's basically countdown to the elections. 4 days to go. That's all we have before Kenya decides who their next president is. The Daily Nation is on IEBC, shows how it will prevent rigging. And this was an exercise, remember, that had been postponed after the killing of Chris Msando, which happened on Friday last week. And that was postponed. But there you go, IEBC coming out to show what is going to happen. And then finally on the Star, Uhuru, Raila, big push for final 3 days of campaign. Those are the headlines, but let's just look at what those headlines actually mean. Now, the final countdown, the Standard here highlighting that with only 4 days to go, the clock is ticking from years to months, then to weeks, and it's going to be down to hours. Now, we're currently on down to days, but soon it'll be down to hours. And yesterday, Uhuru stormed to Kambani and Mombasa, while NASA returned to the South Rift. So, of course, we've seen the political leaders moving left, right, and center. But I remember one of the questions we were asking yesterday with Michelle, who is not in today, is where the other 6 leaders are, the other 6 presidential candidates, because we have the 2, Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, literally traversing the country left, right, and center. So, final countdown, and that is, well, giving a scope of what they have to say and where they have been. Of course, looking at the huge and humongous crowds that both sides of the divide attract whenever they hold a rally. But there you go. That's what we have on the headline this morning. On page 3, stepping aside from politics just a bit, there is what has been titled Bad News for Unmarried Couples with Joint Assets. And this is couples who may be staying together or own property together but have not gone through whatever the state would recognize as marriage, be it in church, be it the traditional marriage, anything that the state would recognize as marriage. Because according to this article, which I would recommend that you read, especially if that be the position or situation that you're in, well, it could be bad news for you in case you own property. But of course, if you are married by standards recognized by the state, then there is no cause for alarm or no need to worry. So bad news for unmarried couples with joint assets. So there you go. An interesting read right there. Now, something that may have slipped many, especially if you've not been ailing or you've not been unwell, is the nurses' strike, which, by the way, is still on. Of course, with the elections only 4 days to go, that seems to have been given a wide berth in terms of what their needs are and what their strike is all about. But there's a story there on page 4. Nurses ignore governor's plea to call off the strike for pay talks. So we do have some governors on the sidelines who are still trying to negotiate with the nurses to have them go back to work, but the nurses have, completely ignored that and said unless their terms are met, or at least they meet at a negotiating table, then they will not return to work. So that, of course, may have been forgotten by virtue of the fact of the season that we're in, where everything right now is more or less projecting and pointing towards the 8th of August. 4 days to go before we go to the polls. On to page 6, and still on matters to do with the nation. 3 told to apologize over remarks. This is from the government spokesman, Eric Kiraithe, and he was asking, or rather he was demanding, that there should be an apology from 3 main leaders, political leaders, and that is Kalonzo Musyoka, Gatundu South MP Moses Kuria, and Kisumu Senator Anyang' Nyong'o. Get yourself a copy and see why he is demanding that they should apologize. But of course, it's after some statements that they made, which the government spokesman referred to as unfortunate, and he is demanding that they should resign, no, not resign, but they should issue an apology and a public apology for that particular matter. On page 6, still, IEBC official was tortured and strangled post-mortem shows. This is according to the post-mortem that was done yesterday on Chris Msango. And of course, the widow there and relatives basically had come to receive the report, which is very, very unfortunate. But details coming out of the fact that he was actually tortured and strangled, and the cause of death there being strangulation, which of course is still in the hands of the police to give us answers as to what may have been the motive, who are the killers, and whether they will be brought to book or not. Yesterday, we did have an official from the DPP's office basically giving us details of what they're doing, but also highlighting some of the challenges that they have when it comes to investigating some of these cases, and one of them being evidence that may not bring the killers to book. But of course, if that evidence is collected well, if that evidence is collected properly, well, she was very clear that the DPP's office is ready and wants to prosecute anybody that is found guilty. So there you go. Page 8, last dash for ballots as election day draws near. We have that statement that came from the CS, acting CS for Interior, and that is Dr. Fred Matiang'i, and also the IG, Boynet, basically speaking to the media and making it very clear that it's all systems go, and the IEBC is ready to be a good arbiter and to ensure that we have free, fair, and credible elections. Remember, there has been a call for peace, but the call for peace may not sound very practical if the elections are not free, fair, and credible, and also viewed to be free, fair, and credible. On to hashtag, which is a pull-out paper that we have in the dailies every Thursday. And this is to do with entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs for that matter. So life as a campus model is what is featured today. The ups and downs of students who can't walk. And of course, some of them do it for an extra penny in their pocket, and possibly looking at having that as their career. So in case you have a daughter, you have a son, you would like to be one of those who would like to know what the challenges are, do get yourself a copy of the Standard, and you certainly will see what the challenges of being a campus catwalker may be, and whether that can be translated into a career or not, or it's just something that you do to fill time. The hashtag this morning has those details. Let's take a look at the Daily Nation. The headline on the Daily Nation is IEBC shows how it will prevent rigging. This was a mock exercise that was done yesterday, and the scanned forms signed by all agents will be backed up for electronic results, and the computers will tally, cross-check, and display votes without human intervention in a system designed to eliminate manipulation. So, of course, this is good news to the electorate, should it work as it is expected, because this would point to the fact that the IEBC is definitely ready for the election. And there you go. They did the mock exercise yesterday, which they said went successfully. And that basically, if it plays out in all the constituencies where the elections are going to be held and where ballots are going to be cast, then we should, as Kenyans, be assured that we will have credible elections come August the 8th. Still on the front page, there is an article there by the CJ to NASA and Jubilee, and it is a warning: keep off the judiciary. So the judiciary yesterday confronted Jubilee and NASA politicians over their frequent criticism of judges and sought to assure Kenyans of its impartiality in deciding the election petitions. So of course, there is expectation that there could be, or rather they are preparing, should there be any contestations after the election, the judiciary is making it very clear that one, they are free, two, they are out to ensure that justice is dished out. So there you go. Basically, the CJ coming out to say, and he even gave examples of the deputy president and NASA principal and presidential candidate Raila Odinga basically having taken jabs at the judiciary, and the president as well. And he asked them to keep off the judiciary because, if anything, they are free, fair, and are there to assure that they arbitrate should there be questions raised. On page 3, you have again that IEBC successful conducts of polls, transmission, and tallying trial, but also something interesting that I think you should get yourself and just acquaint yourself with is on page 3, 7 steps to voting. And it basically gives you what you should expect, and on that day, what you should, anticipate. One, go to your polling station with your ID or your passport. Remember, yesterday we also had a commissioner here from the IEBC who was basically giving us details of what you should expect come August the 8th. And remember, the document that you use to register yourself as a voter is what you will require. You do not need a voter's card. And for example, if you've used your ID card, do not go with your passport. You have to use the document that you use to register. You cannot interchangeably use them, okay? So please be clear on that. If you used your passport to register, then go with your passport. If you used your national identification card, then go with your ID. But there's a 7th step there on the Daily Nation on what exactly is going to happen. And after finishing step number 7, and I think this is important, exit the polling station. I think the IG and the Interior Security Minister acting, and that's Dr. Fred Matiang'i, made it very clear the law must be followed on that particular day. All right, looking at page 5, Uhuru Raila in last-minute vote hunt with only 4 days to go. You can, as expected, they are literally traversing this country left, right, and center to ensure that they popularize their parties and see whether they can edge in any more undecided voters or voters who possibly may be looking for just that one word to tilt their ideas. So we do know that NASA and Jubilee are literally all over the country. And remember, right here on KTN News on Kivumbi 2017, we also have our reporters literally outside in all parts of the country, ensuring that we bring you wall-to-wall coverage of what is happening as we prepare, as we gear ourselves to get to the election. And of course, we are also going to be on toes come August the 8th and even after. So this is definitely your station to watch as we prepare for the election. A few more stories that are in The Nation this morning. Raila denies claim on daughter's NGO. Remember, there was that article yesterday where apparently there had been some accounts frozen on an NGO that is affiliated or Raila's daughter is associated with. And this was because apparently some of the money that was being channeled into that NGO was not being used for what it should have been used for. And according to that article yesterday, apparently it was being used for campaigns, which he has come out to vehemently deny and say that is not true. Let's finally take a look at the Star. On the headline, Uhuru Raila big push for final 3 days of campaign. And of course, this again is highlighting the two principles campaign trail as they continue to endear themselves to the electorate. We also have no electronic transmission of results in 33 electoral units. Again, take a look at that particular article, which was drawn out of the exercise that was carried out yesterday as the IEBC was basically looking at what is expected to happen on that particular day and seeing whether the system is working. And yeah, that's what we have in store for you on the dailies this morning. There's a lot more, but basically just highlighting some of those stories that are making headline. Now, this is Kivumbi 2017, and we are ensuring that we keep you posted and keep tabs on everything as it unfolds and as we get ourselves ready for elections, which is in 4 days. For now, we want to take a short break. When we come back, it's time for the Dawn Debate. And part of what we're going to be discussing is those threats that were issued by the president yesterday to certain chiefs who apparently are working with the opposition. And remember, our question of the day this morning, we are asking whether the president was out of order to threaten the chiefs. So we'll be looking at that on the Dawn Debate this morning, and I'll be introducing the panel. So do stay with us right here on Kivumbi 2017. We'll take a short break, but we'll be right back.